Happy Monday, Mets fans. It's Wardy here, and we're breaking down the latest in Mets land and our latest Big Mets updates segment because we got a lot to get into. Not only is David Stearns ready to spearhead this offseason brilliantly, the Pobo that he is, he's kickstarted things big time on the reliever front. First acquiring a couple relievers over the past week or so, now parting ways with the one this time in Phil Maton. I want to see your initial thoughts in the comments down below, everybody watching here. Greatly appreciate. We're going to deep dive why exactly are the Mets parting ways with Phil Maton. Could a potential reunion happen? Should it happen at all this offseason? And ultimately, why is this such an important day in Mets land right around there, as we're going to get into later on this evening, exactly why we will be alive later on this evening, as well as this is just one of what's destined to be a flurry of moves and a flurry of transactions that happen with the Mets, not only today, but in the coming days throughout. Was definitely a pivotal week for them and across all Major League Baseball here this offseason. Appreciate you guys smashing a like and subscribe on as you always do. Let me know your initial thoughts and reactions down below. And before we break down everything you need to know about this Maton news and ultimately what is next for the Mets and their inevitable moves as soon as today when we talk about this offseason, let's break down our amazing sponsor, however, that you all know very well, and that is at BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook. Check them out today, folks, by going to betus.com.pa for all your sports betting needs by using Wardy's promo code YouTube150. That way you too get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, $125 on your second and your third, up to $2,000 for all your sports betting needs. And we're back at it with our latest NBA 2-pick parlay, and we are biasly hammering my New York Knicks again because of course we are. I'm fully intending to be covering the Knicks game late tonight on Knicks Media YouTube channel. Check that out, where I get post-game reaction content too, and also breakdowns there after every other Knicks game on average. Knicks Media on YouTube. Check them out, folks. But we're going to be doing a two-leg parlay. First is the Knicks outright money line -130 against the Houston Rockets. Then we're going to have the Dallas Mavericks at -190 here on the money line against the Indiana Pacers. And that is ultimately going to be a $20 parlay that's going to win me 34, so right around 54 outright should both those teams win outright. So hopefully that happens. Feel free to tail this bet should you guys wish, but most importantly, just make sure you bet responsibly. And if you're going to bet, do it with our amazing friends here at BetUS. But as we hop back in this one, everybody, you see the amazing graphic made by my editor, Jacob. Shout out to him as always here on X. As you guys can see, Mets decline option for Phil Maton. Now, no one should be overly shocked by this news, so let's start there. Regardless of what Maton did or didn't do in the postseason, and sadly, he didn't do anything positive, not only because he was thrown in bad situations, but also he was just throwing bad baseballs when he was doing it. It just was not a good postseason run at all for Phil Maton. But regardless of the lack of postseason, not so much effort, but effectiveness there, efficiency, if you will, that really wasn't going to waver too much in David Stearns' decision here, because Phil Maton, who the Mets acquired, as we know, back with from the Tampa Bay Rays pre-trade deadline this year, was certainly a respectable player for them down the stretch throughout the course of the regular season, a reliable one. So much so that we saw Maton, after he was acquired, who had just turned 32 at the time, have himself a very respectable campaign. He put up a total in 71 games between the Rays and the Mets this season, a 1.1 whip, a 3.66 ERA, and that had a 2.36 ERA for the Mets in the final 28 appearances of the second half leading into postseason play. But the problem with Phil Maton that we all know that was sadly exposed big time there in this postseason is that this is a man that was not able to handle high leverage situations when called upon, even with high pressure situations. I understand, even when things not necessarily looking overly great because you don't have a lot of other bullpen options, so you got to throw them at back-to-back days, whatever it might be. Maton wasn't able to get the job done the way that he certainly did in recent years with Houston Astros, and knowing that he had an option for 2025 of roughly $8 million, $7,750,000 or so to be exact. Yeah, David Stearns, far from being known as a guy that overspends for his bullpen when he tries to work in-house with current options, along with external options that are creative, like the guys they've already signed this past week or so. Maton was never coming back to the Mets at this value, but this is somewhat of a similar situation, if you will, to one being in Adam Ottavino. Adam Ottavino initially tried to restructure his contract with the Mets last offseason. David Stearns, as soon as he became Bobo, said, "I appreciate that, Adam, but we're not going to do that here. Have a fun offseason. Have a fun free agency." Adam, a New York native, decided to do his S&Y segments a couple times and then restructured and did a new deal with the Mets that was a lower AAV there, around, $4.5 million or so for this past season. Ottavino, who's currently pitching, I believe, in the Mexican League or so, Winter League, whatever it might be, he will likely not be with the Mets next season, barring changes. Maton, however, though, even though that we've all learned that, yes, he probably isn't the best in high leverage and postseason play, he did improve his ability greatly down the stretch stretch in the regular season. That's an arm that I would not be opposed to returning at a lesser value, at least at half the cost or around so of the AAV he was looking for there. No one's giving Phil Maton $8 million per year AAV this offseason. Even with the biggest relievers out there, you're not going to see the Mets overspend for anyone on the bullpen front outside of maybe one specific reliever. David Stearns, though, has a very structured formula on how he goes about constructing rotations of bullpens, and there's a lot of factors that come into play. But dollars, regardless on how much the Mets have to spend this offseason, they're going to be smart. They're not going to act like drunken sailors. So in a situation like this, it makes most sense to buy in there to instead not buying into his contract, but buying out it rather. And that was only a buyout of what, $250,000 for the Mets to eat. So that's literally a nothing burger for them. Literally, Luis Torrens, when the Mets acquired, for example, they ate the contract, and that was $100,000. So again, this is penny pinching money that is not a problem for them. They're not penny pinching. They know that Maton should not be deserving of that dollar when they know they can really spread the wealth elsewhere. And I think a great further breakdown on Maton and a little bit of thoughts here is from our amazing pitching contributor on the platform that you all know very well. That is my good buddy Isaac Groffman. Make sure to give him a follow there on X if you guys haven't already. He's going to be contributing plenty throughout the offseason, both on X for us and here on the YouTube channel. As you guys can see, there were some concerning signs in Maton's X stats, which are descriptive, not predictive. 235 slugging, 392 expected slug, 290 WOBA, but a 322 XWOBA. Also, he posted his lowest K percentage since 2019, the highest hard hit percentage since 2017. At roughly $8 million, the Mets can do so much better for far less, and a guy that actually has velocity that can blow people away the way that Ryan Stank did, and not giving up beat balls and hangers right down the pipe the way that Maton did as a soft-tossing right-hander that he unfortunately is in the sake of postseason play. Wasn't unfortunate in the regular season, but really hurt the Mets in postseason play. Either way, Maton gave the Mets a lot of reasonable outings when we gave up nothing to land him. He was one of many weapons that the Mets utilized beautifully throughout the stretch of the season, their bullpen, when they try to fortify things after their horrendous month of May that they had there. Now we see Phil Maton now no longer with the Mets. I wish him the best with his future endeavors, but I wouldn't be shocked if he finds himself landing with the Mets on a lesser contract on, say, a one-year deal with maybe a second-year option. Mets fans, let me know, are you completely for Phil Maton no longer being a Met, or would you be in favor of him returning on a lesser AAV? Whatever your thoughts are, drop them down below. Greatly appreciated. And now let's talk about why this is such a big day for the Mets. Not only the news that we just broke there, and hopefully nothing else crazy happens from the time I'm uploading this video, but there's going to be a lot of things transpiring today, as Michael Mayer, who does a tremendous job covering the Mets through his blog at Metsmrise, give him a follow if you guys haven't already. I reference Michael all the time. Great guy. I've had only positive interactions with him, and I reference him for a lot of Mets information at times because he's so quick to come with certain things, with important dates, things of that nature. So especially on X, guys, make sure to give Mike a follow. But he states the following here: big night in MLB at 5 p.m. Eastern, as we know, because players can officially sign with teams, which is very exciting, new teams rather, and the deadline for teams and players to decide on options. So we're going to find out today who the Mets throw qualifying offers at. Expect Pete Alonso, expect Sean Manaea, and potentially expect Luis Severino. Quintana, I'd be surprised if it happens until proven otherwise, but we'll see. Either way, we're going to find out decisions for the Mets and their pending free agents. In case you're wondering, Wardy, what are the Mets pending free agents? They got a lot of them. They got a lot of them right now, folks, as you see from Michael Mayer. Pete Alonso, that you guys see here, and let me expand on this. Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, Jose Quintana, JD Martinez, Phil Maton, Shintaro Fujinami, everyone's favorite reliever that never impacted the Mets this year. Drew Smith, remember him. Brooks Raley, remember him. Jesse Winker, Harrison Bader, Ryan Stanek, Jose Iglesias, and one Adam Ottavino. Those are all the current pitchers, outfielders, infielders, whatever you might have, starters that are going to be hitting the market for this offseason. We're going to be breaking down in our live show later today what are the statuses of these guys, who did they throw qualifying offers at, who did they not, were these the right or wrong decisions, are the Mets making any immediate moves, signings, or trades, because again, the floodgates open at 5 p.m. today, so wouldn't it be shocking for David Stearns, who's already been early to the party with some offseason signings the past week, that he could find himself dabbling in some already as soon as later this evening heading into tonight. Either way, folks, we're going to cover this to an absolute T as we always do. Awards are going on as well, as many of you guys have seen, and the Mets have 2 Silver Slugger finalists, Alonso and Lindor. Vientos is sadly not one of them, and I believe that is because of, the amount of at-bats that he had, games that wasn't reaching the qualifier, which is unfortunate because he also is not a Silver Slugger. Out of third base options specifically, when guys like Matt Chapman, Alec Boehm, Nolan Arenado, all who had a lower that we saw their WRC pluses and overall value value than Mark Vientos as a batter throughout when they were playing throughout the same sample size. And Bohm was also horrendous throughout the second half of the season heading into postseason play. But that's neither here nor there. I'm already beyond fed up with the awards. The fact that Lindor wasn't even a Gold Glove finalist again, and Ezequiel Tovar not only was but won. It's those, nothing against Tovar personally, but what are we doing here? Again, that's a broken record for another day, folks. But what is for today, what is for now, to wrap up this discussion for each and every one of you, is that the Mets are destined to make moves. And when it comes to why did they make this decision on guys like Phil Maton, well, it goes in hand with the overall haul that they're going to do, the overhaul, if you will, to this bullpen. Because it's not only Maton, it's Ottavino, it's Smith, Stanek, among others there. You obviously have Edwin Diaz, Reed Garrett, Danilo Nunez among that core group that'll be back next season in the bullpen, but you have a lot of question marks. So this is where David Stearns, now with some money in his pocket, unlike last offseason where the Mets were not penny pinching, but, more so cruising throughout the offseason, weren't going to spend big unless it was really warranted, like a Yamamoto. Now it's a different circumstance. Now there are relievers that the Mets can go after, and even if they say throw a decently high AAV to, if it's on a short-term deal, it's not going to hurt anyone, nor is it going to hurt the Mets at all in their financial flexibility. So don't be shocked they go after at least one key name on the reliever front this offseason. Don't expect too many when it comes to David Stearns. But either way, no matter what Stearns and the Mets decide to do this offseason, signings, trades, overall rumors, rumblings, reports, you name it, we're going to cover here on the platform to a T, as we always do each and every offseason, which is why we have become the number one Mets platform consistently year after year here on YouTube, not directly affiliated with the Mets themselves, thanks to each and every one of you guys watching us live right here, right now. So thank you guys endlessly for the support. It's greatly appreciated. And I will see you all later on this evening. Not exactly sure on the time yet, so make sure to check out anywhere from 5 to 8 p.m. Eastern. So we're planning to go live, so be on the lookout, folks. Basically, once we find out the deadline and once moves start to happen, once we find out who's getting the QO, who's not, we're going to go live not long after that. So I hope to see you guys then. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your night to evening whenever you're watching this, and make sure to check out our previous Mets content if you haven't already. Because when it comes to Juan Soto, no one's going to be covering them more 2T than what we have here on WardyNYM all off season long. All the rumblings, all the news, all the reports, I said it already. I'm out of here. This is your guy Wardy, and I'll see you again real soon. Peace out, folks. Let's go Mets.